Welcome to the Integration Lens, another episode with Lina and myself. It's good to be back, and today we thought we would discuss a topic that is very maybe a little bit complex, but in some ways very helpful, I think, to understand for growth and development, and really points to the importance of self-awareness and kind of understanding our inner landscape. And that is this concept of gift overextension dynamic and how it can play out in our lives, in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our relationships as well. So we're excited about this topic and exploring it today.
Yes. Hi, Daniela. It's so fun to be with you again. And I think it's a really important topic. And like you said, it's probably a little bit complex, but we inevitably come up against it. I think even in daily situations. So if we don't pay attention, even starting in the morning, let's say, if we are not intentionally committing to being aware of our patterns of what may be happening, then it's on autopilot. Like we just armor up with this thing that we have created that has served us so well. And I think this is what we're talking about today: is just how to notice the subtleties between armoring up and showing up in the world with vulnerability, but also true strength that comes from that.
Yeah. I often talk about the difference between being lived by our architecture versus living with our architecture.
Mm, I love that.
And and I think that it is a big difference because when we're lived by our architecture, that we're not aware often of our patterns and some of the things that may be driving us, that may be impacting our behaviors,
Hmm.
our tendencies, and our autopilot.
Hmm.
When we start to come into relationship with our architecture and really understand it, we can start to shine a light on some of these aspects of patterns and autopilot and how that's showing up in our lives. And last time we talked about the concept of self-sabotage. So that's one example of we can really start to understand, oh, this is maybe how some of my protective mechanisms are holding us back. But I think this is another way to look at our internal architecture is to start understanding how can we ground ourselves in our gifts, but then also see how these gifts maybe have been recruited into earning in our life
Mm,
and or even into protecting. And it's, when we talk about protection, we talk about vulnerability, right?
mm,
There's something very vulnerable that's being protected. And often the gifts get recruited to serve this role of protection and earning of value, earning of belonging,
hmm.
or whatever it is that we are lacking. And and it often serves us for a long time, and we
That's
see
right.
this a lot in leadership, and even in life that, this recruitment of our gifts serves us until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't. Yeah. And it really, how for me, when I think about it on a very practical level in daily situations, how that shows up. It shows up when we catch ourselves thinking, why is this happening to me?
Mhm.
Okay, if something doesn't go well. I mean, I can give you 20 examples just from my last 2 weeks when things just went completely different than what I was setting up to do or what I wanted the outcome to be. And if I um, definitely get stuck there sometimes and think, like, why is this happening right now? There's just like this agitation, irritation, oftentimes frustration with the outside circumstances. It's the difference between allowing myself and my life to be lived at the mercy of those outside circumstances
Mhm.
versus being able to discern what is within my control, what is my response to these
Mhm.
things that are happening, and being able to notice even. how do I set up some of them to
Mhm.
happen?
Uh-huh.
So it becomes almost like a magic wand once you understand your own involvement in the creation of the outside circumstances, that then we just throw the hand up and say, like, why is this happening to me?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes, there is a difference between, living our life and experiencing our life. And the experience is co-created by ourselves. However, sometimes we're not conscious of it. So this is where our architecture is living us rather
Mm,
than us living with it, right? And so we kind of create the reality we're trying to avoid. And maybe we can provide an example, but I think a lot of people and women can relate to this, especially type A or high achieving women, is that sometimes that achievement or this drive to do things well, get a lot of things done, right? Being productive, it's very rewarded from childhood. Maybe some achievement was rewarded early on. That's how a person really related to worth, which is very human. Again, it's protecting this human vulnerability, and so this architecture has been built around it, which then slowly kind of turns into an identity commitment. Oh, I always have to stay busy. I always have to be productive. I always have to handle everything. Well, what happens is that then that person does that for years, but starts running into burnout. Like, what happened to me? Where am I? Right? I've been trying to get all of this done, take all of this taken care of. Well, so they look at the circumstances and say, well, this is the circumstances of my life is what's requiring me to be this way. And I don't know how to not be this way.
yep,
Right? Like, I'm either going to do all of it or then I don't know what that alternative looks like. And that is usually a clue that there is some kind of an identity commitment running us, because
yep,
we can't even imagine what it would look like to slow down. Or we start to look at the circumstances and say, I just can't. I can't. Like, my life is just doesn't allow me to. Like, I have this and this and this, and I have this and da, 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 da. Right. So we start creating these explanations. Well, it's often not about the circumstances. It is often about the implications, what it would mean to us, who we would be if we let go of all the achieving, the controlling, the doing.
yep.
And that's
Yeah,
what really impacts, right? So it's this combination of things like, yes, the circumstances matter, but how do we relate to them?
I want to give you an example because I recognize myself in so much of what you're talking about, and I think for Enneagram 3, especially, as I relate to achievement, I can see just verbatim, some of the things. And I want to expose one of the things that I have discovered that was very difficult to look at when I first started realizing what was happening underneath. So, picture this. Um, a child that's very capable of things. And because it's capable, it's myself being asked to do more and more and being rewarded for it. I remember just a really funny story. I was recollecting it yesterday, but when I was 6 years old in Bulgaria, we had to, we were living in my grandfather's house, and then it was, my aunts and uncles and everybody, and we had to build onto the house so that we had enough space to live. And how you do that in Bulgaria back in the day was you invite your friends to come and help you. Like, we didn't have money to hire workers or do anything like that. So here we are. My dad is working side by side with all his friends, and they're laying down, the foundation on the second story and building, the brick walls and everything else. And my mom is in the kitchen, like making food for the workers. And lo and behold, at one point, we run out of beer, and it's a hot summer day, and there's no beer for the workers, and this is like a cardinal sin. And so my dad can't go because, the cement is not going to wait. My mom can't go because still things have to be done. They look around and they see me, and I'm 6 years old, and say, you go to the store and grab these bags and you fill them up and buy as much beer as you can carry. And so, I go to the store, and I had to cross this huge intersection that I had never had to do on my own. But
Mhm,
here I was with the responsibility, with the money in hand and the bags and whatever it took, I was going to fulfill that responsibility and come back the hero with the beer. So, what happens in that moment for the child is I have in order to do this task, which is really huge and not fall apart in front of the intersection where I've never crossed that intersection by myself, I have to sort of turn away from the internal fear and doubt. Can I do it? I'm scared.
mhm,
These cars are big and fast and coming. I've never done it before. And I have to direct my attention in real time. Now, this is absolutely not, there was no awareness at 6 years
mhm.
old that this is what
Right.
I'm doing, but I'm just kind of deconstructing the moment. And in that moment, turning towards taking that leap of faith and doing what I hadn't done before. Now, with the successful completion of the mission, becomes like, yes, I grow into this role. Now I take on more and more responsibility. You know, you fast forward the picture in the movie, and here I am playing in 2 Olympics. And
Mhm,
now, I have this belief that I am the creator of what I want my life to be like. And it comes, with my own 2 hands being involved in everything.
mhm,
Until what you're talking about is this overextension of the gift.
mhm,
Don't necessarily ask for help or know how to even,
mhm,
because that would be letting down
mhm,
this promise or this image, this identity that
mhm,
I had developed
mhm,
from a young age of this achiever, of becoming this, delivering the outcome at whatever cost it is. Now, when you start that process of integration, at first it looks like the world is abandoning me. I have to do all these different things because nobody else is stepping in and helping.
mhm,
What's very hard to look at there is what's easier to look at is, all these other people and things and outside circumstances. What the harder part is to look inside and recognize and start with my own self-abandonment.
mhm.
Now that is the pain that we don't wanna see and sometimes avoid at all cost. And this is what we're talking about here is and this is why we have to be so gentle with ourselves,
Yes.
once we start realizing what this work really entails, is we have to look at how did I abandon myself in that moment early on and in all the moments all throughout that supported the overextension of the gift.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you really are speaking to this aspect or concept of personality, right? How this personality develops over our lives or throughout our lives, and it starts so early with something so simple. Now, you probably already had something in your temperament that was very sensitive to, approval, and so your nervous system started to learn, like, oh, when there's this push to do something, to get something done, to achieve something, we get a relief, right? We get the sense of like, okay, we are good, we belong, we just got that approval from the outside. And it's so normal because if you think about it, as children, we don't have this ability to give that to ourselves. So we really look to the outside and an external world for that affirmation of
Mhm.
who we are. And
Oh,
so if that external world is giving us this affirmation, that's what we will hold on to. And again, this nervous system really does play a role because it starts to pick up on those implicit memories and implicit messages and says, oh, when this happens, this is how I get relief.
mhm.
And and it serves you because it has recruited that gift into its service. It's just that
100%.
when that personality takes over and you lose that ability to discern, then it can start to kind of run against this, if you will. And
Yeah.
when you said we have to be gentle, that's exactly right. Because when we step away or we try to reveal a little bit of that
Mm.
vulnerability behind that personality, it feels very exposing. because
Mhm.
this has served a certain role. And so when you say, okay, how do I become more comfortable not feeling like I need to achieve or let go? There's like a sense of letting go of control a little bit,
Mhm,
and it
mhm.
feels very vulnerable. And so stepping into it with awareness, with like, okay, this is what it served. So I need to be um, thankful for it essentially because it's been trying to serve me, protect me, and earn me what I was looking for, as a child. But now I'm an adult. I
Right.
know I don't need to earn,
Mhm.
but I have to understand that it is really embodied, right? That's what creates the discomfort. And that's where what you're saying is we have to be really gentle with ourselves and during the process of this growth.
And I really love your other example, is when we step into a different role, let's say, professionally, how to do those patterns that got us there? How do we transcend them so that they help us in the new role versus hinder us? But I'd love talk about a little bit about that example that you gave me when we were just talking.
Yes, yes. So often when I work with clients that are, in organizational leadership, I start with an exercise when we look at patterns and we kind of do this i- inventory. I call it, let's do an honest inventory of patterns, right? Let's not explain them. Let's just make an inventory. And we make two columns and we'll say, okay, how did these patterns serve me? And how do they not serve me? And often what I see is that people get to a certain point of their careers because of their gifts and their gifts serving them. But then they can get into a position of, for example, let's take an example of a leader, right? Who got promoted maybe to a managing role or a leadership role where now they have a team that they need to work with, but they got there through being an individual contributor,
Mhm.
and their gifts were very strong in getting things done, being very self-sufficient, very disciplined. Well, now they get into a position where something else is being asked of them.
Mhm.
It is they're asked to be more collaborative. They're asked to be able to delegate.
Delegate is a perfect example. Yes.
Yeah, and they really struggle with it. They think, "Oh, well, if I do that, they're not gonna do it correctly. If I do that, then I can't control the outcome," because they're so used to controlling the outcome. And so this, ability to achieve and get things done has served them, but letting go, then that reflects on this difficulty to collaborate or delegate is the other side, that shadow side of the gift overextension.
Yes.
So that's an example of how it shows up often in leadership.
It's a beautiful example. It happens all the time, and it is something that you really have to be intentional about. Otherwise, it's just so easy to slip into the patterns.
Mhm,
It's like I said before. It's just like another skin, but you don't feel. You just feels like it's your own. So it's
mhm,
difficult to see it. Oftentimes we can't really see it. We can't recognize it. It's our blind spots and the things that why would I have to change that? Because here it was yesterday. The example is so fresh in my mind. Our nervous system, like you said, remembers that and it's ready right there with an example. Well, here's how it worked yesterday. So it's going to work this way again today. And it works until it doesn't.
until it doesn't. And then, when leaders or whoever gets to a position and they recognize that, okay, I have a sense that this pattern is not serving me. Well, when they want to change it, they will go into the overcorrection. So in this situation, a leader could delegate, but not be involved in, let's say, the teamwork, right? They're just going to kind of test it. Like, I'm just going to let everyone do it, and then if it fails, then see.
It's almost like, yeah, like prove to me that, yeah, they can't do it as well as I can.
Exactly, exactly. And so, this is an example with the team, but then with someone who maybe who struggles with something different. Let's say they're a very relational person. They have like the opposite type of personality pattern, very collaborative, very much of a helper. And now they get to a position and they have to be more direct. They
Mm,
have to, provide constructive feedback. And they really struggle with it. And so they think, oh, I'll just need to become firmer. I need
mhm.
to be firm and I need to not be as nice,
And
right? So
oftentimes they're told they need to be that.
often they're told, exactly, they're told, well, you need to just be tougher.
Yeah,
You need to just tell them, right? And so, but that goes against some of the very foundational gifts that the person has. And so when they feel like they just have to abandon it, this is the change example. I need to change into someone different in order to grow, right? To be a better leader. Well, our invitation would be, how can we expand our capacity to lean into more of this expanded way of being in congruence with our architecture? So I still care about people. What does it look like for me to be caring and to remain relational and challenge some of these assumptions that maybe I'm holding about what does it mean to give constructive feedback? What would that look like for someone who has this temperament and these gifts, right? So we don't want to abandon the gift. We want
right.
to add to, we want to expand,
Yeah.
not remove.
Yeah, and it's a process, it's not easy to do. It's not like, even once I'm aware of it, I can just, it is a decision, I believe, to in a commitment that you make to yourself that I'm not going to forsaken who I am and what has got me here. In fact, I'm going to take a moment to acknowledge it. It can be tricky sometimes. We can slide back and forth, and it hasn't been also easy for me to find the right balance. But I have found that once you start recognizing, just taking that moment, so just slowing down just enough to acknowledge what is this feeling that's arising in me that I'm trying to not look at so that I can perform, because this, has the potential of derailing
Mhm,
some of the we have to organize ourselves in a certain way to perform on a daily basis and to get something done, whatever the task may be, especially when we're responsible for other lives and livelihoods of the people around us. It is very understandable why we go to the gift and why we overextend it.
mhm.
So I think, I'd be curious now to hear from you, what are just some daily practices that I think help us catch ourselves in those situations, and how do we move through it so that we integrate more of who we want to be rather than try to change in some of the more inefficient ways.
Yeah, well, for a long time, I thought that understanding was the most important thing. That once we have this knowledge of our patterns, that then we can start to try to expand or start to try to loosen the grip. And I still think that understanding is important. So I think this first step of excavating and understanding what identity commitments may have been created through these gifts. When I say identity commitment, it's first of all, it's unconscious. It is something that we've developed throughout our lives. It usually is a never or always absolute, meaning something that I believe unconsciously about my identity that I need to be. So I always have to get things done. I always have to, achieve a perfect outcome, or I can never be vulnerable, or I can never be needy, something like that. So it's usually an absolute that is controlling us. So once we start to shine a light on it and do a little bit of excavation about where this may be coming from, we can have that self-compassion. And then through with that understanding, I think comes that embodied reflective action, which is the second part, I think, of moving towards integration is actually, well, how do we expand our capacity? How can we ground in the understanding so then we can take these small steps and start testing out how this feels and also inform our nervous system, which, by the way, our nervous system is like a conductor of our architecture. It's conducting the music. So starting to pay attention to it and understanding, oh, this discomfort I'm feeling is coming from me, because I am at the growth edge.
Mhm.
So for someone, let's say someone is really running into burnout. So a first step for someone like that may be, okay, well, what is the worst that can happen if I stop responding to emails at 6 p.m.? I'm going to feel uncomfortable because there's going to be a fear, both of what may happen, but it's not even what may happen. What is it? What may happen? What does that mean about me?
What do I believe may happen? What do I
Hmm.
believe other people may think as
Exactly.
a
And how does
result?
that reflect on this identity that I'm holding on to so
Yeah.
strongly? So it's I would say a very conscious
Mhm.
work, exercise. It requires self-awareness. It requires the practice and this ability to navigate a little bit of discomfort as we expand the capacity. And that does get easier
Yeah.
because we're informing our nervous system in the process of taking those small steps.
Yeah. So I hear a couple of things that I think are very helpful that we can extract from what we've been talking about today. Number one is noticing. And oftentimes we know it about ourselves, deep down we can acknowledge it. And even with a close friend, say, of course, this is how I am and what I do. And so, but the noticing goes, there has to be another step after the noticing, and that's the acknowledgement of what is the true cost to me here. And in that process, I believe those two questions that you named are really helpful. What do I believe will happen? And
Mhm,
what is the worst that can actually happen? And then the question, is it really true? Is what I am telling myself that will happen, is that really true?
mhm,
Right? So that can begin to loosen the grip of this, I have to, I have to, I have to. If I don't, then this, right? So
mhm.
noticing, questioning,
Yes.
and giving ourselves a chance to come up with a different response. Well, let's see. What is at stake here?
Mhm,
Is that, what is truly really important? How can I be at my best showing up versus how can I be at the mercy of the
mhm.
circumstances showing up? Two completely different, same person, two completely different responses producing a different outcome in reality.
Exactly. One is being produced from a reactive place, and one is being produced from a grounded place.
Mhm.
And another point to the noticing and the acknowledging is, how does that feel? Do I feel activation? And usually, if we can sense there's some kind of an activation or a sense of urgency, like I have to do this, I can't not do it, that means the nervous system is really attached to it. It's driving us. Usually, it's like in that low sympathetic state. It's almost like a physical
Mhm.
feeling. So even paying attention to our emotions that arise, our thoughts, like if we have looping thoughts, that's another good example of something kind of taking over, if you will. So paying attention to our sensations and then grounding and saying, how do I move forward from presence,
Yes.
from grounded presence? So yeah, so definitely awareness is important, but then getting more in touch with our emotions, our sensations in the body, getting a little bit comfortable with the discomfort. And not
Yes.
again, not pushing, right? When we don't want to push against or force something. That's why we talk about it has to be kind of these gentle, small steps because we're working with ourselves, not against ourselves.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So,
That's
so
great.
yeah. So
Love our
hopefully
topic today.
yes, hopefully that was helpful for the listeners. And they have a few tools to maybe start recognizing where this gift overextension maybe playing out in their lives. And I invite everyone to look at all of the landscape of their lives because it does show up in relationships, in our professional lives, but in, our personal lives and what we let ourselves or don't let ourselves to pursue. And I think the understanding that everything belongs, we don't want to be changing who we are. We really want to be expanding our ability, and that the personality that we have is not us. It is something, these patterns is something we have, but they are not who we are.
Correct.
Yes.
Great.
So we look forward to the next topic. If anyone, again, I will repeat that we do have a form in the show notes where people could submit questions if anyone has a specific topic that they would like to explore or would like us to return to. Otherwise, we will keep coming up with themes that we think are helpful for the listeners. But we look forward to the next episode.
Thanks, Daniela. That was fun.
Thank you, Lena. It was great talking to you.